Another example of a molecule is the water molecule. So in a water molecule, we have two hydrogens and an oxygen that are being held together in stable association. Water is a very important molecule for the human body. Now, water is not considered organic. To be organic, a molecule must contain both carbon and hydrogen. So water has hydrogen but no carbon, therefore we classify it as inorganic. But even though it's not organic, it is still a very important molecule for the human body. For example, water makes up the majority of the human body weight. Now, in different people, water will make up a different percentage of their body weight. It depends upon your age and the amount of lean tissue versus adipose tissue, and a lot of different things determine how much of your body weight is water. However, in general, greater than 50% of the weight of your body is due to water. Water is all over the place in your body. Now, most of your body is made of cells, those small little units that contain life within your body. And when we look inside of a cell, we find mostly water. About 70% of what's inside of a cell is water. Now, water also plays a big role with chemical reactions that occur in the human body. So a chemical reaction is really just the creation and the breaking down of molecules. So whenever we break down like the chicken in our chicken sandwich that we had for lunch, right? We're breaking down the protein in that chicken, right, into little individual pieces, right? That involves chemical reactions. But then we take those little pieces from that protein and we bring it into our cells, and then we build our own proteins out of that. So that is also a chemical reaction. So chemical reactions are just the building and breaking of molecules inside the body and inside of cells. And water puts its little nosy nose in all of these chemical reactions. So usually water is a big part to many of the chemical reactions that occur in our body. Water is also an excellent lubricant. Normally, we think of lubricants as like oils and things like that. Like in our car engines, we use oil as a lubricant. In the human body, we don't have a lot of oils. We tend to use water as a lubricant. For example, in your joints, you have a type of fluid called synovial fluid. And the synovial fluid is one of the things at a joint that allows one bone to slide past the other bone without a lot of friction happening. We also have a lot of water in these membranes or sheet-like structures around our heart and lungs and digestive organs, so that when those parts move around, the water in these membranes helps to reduce the friction and lubricates the area. Water is also a really good solvent, so that might be a new word for you. A solvent is something that can dissolve other substances, right? And water is very good at dissolving some things, right? If you've ever made Kool-Aid, right, or instant coffee or something like that, you've seen this at work, right? In this picture here, we actually see water dissolving salt, right? So water is very good at dissolving some things, but not others. Water is also very good at resisting changes in temperature. You've probably noticed this if you've ever tried to boil water. It doesn't boil instantaneously, right? It takes time and energy to heat up the water until it's boiling. So water is very good at resisting changes in temperature. And this comes in handy for our body temperature homeostasis. We try to maintain the same body temperature, whether we're in a very warm environment or a very cool environment. And one of the things that helps us to maintain the stable body temperature is the fact that our body is made mostly of water, and water is resisting changes in temperature. Now, when we talk about water, we need to talk about the concept of hydrophobic and hydrophilic. So you've heard the term phobic before, as in fearing, right? Maybe you're arachnophobic, right? So hydrophobic means water fearing. Hydro is water, whereas hydrophilic means water loving. So some substances love to mix with water and some substances do not. So hydrophilic substances are substances that like to mix with water. Right? So salt is an example of a hydrophilic substance. It mixes well with water. Most of the things that we find in the human body do mix well with water. Right? things like sugar and proteins and even things like DNA and electrolytes such as sodium ions and calcium ions, and some types of vitamins are hydrophilic and they mix well with water. Hydrophobic substances do not mix well with water, right? And you might be familiar with an experiment maybe you did in preschool where you tried to mix water and vegetable oil together and it didn't work out, right? And that's because the vegetable oil is hydrophobic. It does not mix well with water. There are some things in the human body that are hydrophobic, but not a lot since the body's mostly water. Hydrophobic substances do not mix well with water, right? Maybe you've done an experiment where you had to try to mix like vegetable oil and water together, right? And you put the two together, you shake up the bottle, you set it down, and they separate out. And that's because oil is hydrophobic, right? So most of the substances in the human body are hydrophilic, but there are some hydrophobic substances, and most of these belong to a group called lipids. So lipids include things like some hormones such as estrogen and testosterone. It includes cholesterol, triglycerides, which are like the fats that we find in our fat tissue. And in general, most lipids are hydrophobic. There are some lipids that do have a hydrophilic part to them, and most of these belong to a group called the phospholipids. And we'll talk more about those in a little bit.